Hey there, welcome to Block Ixla Artistry and welcome back to another episode of Radio Artistry. So there's quite a bit to cover, so let's go ahead and get into the wild update that was announced at the last Minecraft Live, and let's start things off with the Birch Forest. So in the concept art for the Birch Forest, one of the things in the concept art looked like taller trees, which was very cool. This could be a nice ambient thing, and it could be more realistic too. Next up we have the shelf mushrooms, which were actually attached to the birch trees. The shelf mushrooms could indeed be for some sort of ambience, which is really nice. More details to add more life to the Minecraft world is always good to see. And perhaps the shelf mushrooms could have some sort of use, which is always fun. And there was also fallen tree logs on the ground, which is also really good for ambience. There was also moss on the tree log, which could be some sort of new item. And like Agnes said, the wild update is about adding beautiful nature and lots of adventures and challenges. It also looked like to me in the concept art with the birch forest that there was a lot of new flowers and things like that, which again is really great for ambience. And overall, my thoughts on the birch forest is that it looks really nice. It looks like a very pleasant biome. I think one thing that could be really cool for the trees in Minecraft, and I don't know if it would be specifically birch trees, but if the trees could kind of have like a falling leaf particle, I've always thought that would be really cool. I don't know if that's realistically something Minecraft could do considering all the trees that there are in the game, but I think it could even add more life to the forest and things like that. And let's talk about the allay, because I feel like the allay relates to the forest, because the forest might be the kind of place in Minecraft that the allay spawns, maybe even the birch forest in particular. And as many of you know, the allay won the Minecraft mob vote, and I think it's going to be a very fun and interesting mob. So let's go ahead and talk about the Deep Dark, and let's go ahead and start things off with the Skulk Catalyst. So the way that King B-Dogs presented the Skulk Catalyst is it's basically a type of block that will absorb mobs' XP, and that's how the Skulk will actually spread. So when you defeat a mob and it drops XP, it will actually absorb that XP and the Skulk will spread to that area, which is very interesting because, as some people have noted, you can actually use this to make a Skulk XP container type block. Okay, so next up we have the Skulk Shrieker. And basically when the Skulk Shrieker is activated by the Skulk sensor, it will make a loud sound and tell the warden to go check out that area. And the more that the Skulk Shrieker is activated, the more likely it is that the warden will show up wherever it's being activated. So let's talk about the Deep Dark Cities, which is a very interesting addition to the game. So basically the Deep Dark Cities are these cities underground that are completely overgrown with Skulk. And from what we saw in Minecraft Live, it looked very interesting, very intense, very challenging. Now, like myself, and I'm guessing that many of you were very surprised when we all saw the warden again. And when the warden came out of the ground, it was very, very intense. Basically, when the Skulk Shrieker is activated, the warden can come out of the ground anywhere around the Skulk Shrieker to check things out, which is a very intense and very cool mechanic. And something that I believe is new is the smell mechanic that the warden has. So not only now will the warden be able to look for your vibrations, it will actually be able to pick up on your scent and kind of find where you are. And everything that we saw about the warden in the Deep Dark at Minecraft Live, it looked like it had a lot of adventure in it, very interesting mechanics, and it looked like a very challenging experience. Very intense indeed. And they actually had to tell the viewers that the clip of the warden that they were going to show was a little bit intense and maybe too intense for some players. But all the talk around the Deep Dark and how intense it might be for some players has actually given me an idea for a new item. And that's actually an item that I would like to make an animated concept for. And as a few of you might know, I'm currently working on my animated concept for the Amethyst Shield. And so I'm thinking about the item that I want to make for the Deep Dark will actually be released as an animated concept after my Amethyst Shield video. And the item that I want to make for the Deep Dark, I actually think could be very comforting to the actual real-life player when they're playing in the Deep Dark. And you may wonder how that could be, but I think it'll be a very fun and interesting concept, and I think this is actually going to be a very important item. And I think it could fit well in the game. And it's actually one of my first concepts that I'm thinking about putting on the actual Minecraft suggestions page. I'm thinking that the concept for the item will make more sense whenever I explain it all. And I think it's going to be a fun item that I actually would personally use. Okay, so let's talk about the swamp biome. So in Minecraft Live, they were actually talking about the fact that the swamp is getting quite an overhaul, starting off with the boat with the chest in it. I think that the boat with the chest in it is actually going to be a very fun addition to the game, because in my opinion, I almost see this item as a type of backpack. And now it's not entirely convenient for land travel, but at the very least, we can still move around on land. I'm sort of wondering if somebody's going to make some kind of technique of using a water bucket and placing it in front of the boat while they're on land, and then picking it up at the right time to quickly travel across land in the chest boat. So the mangrove tree and wood. I think the mangrove trees look very cool, and the wood could work well with jungle wood, as many people have noted. I think the mangrove biome looks good, great for another biome, great for more ambience. And in the mangrove biome, they actually said that they were going to be adding mud to the game, which can actually be used to make renewable clay. And that's also very cool. They also said that because they're adding mud to the game, that they'll also be adding mud bricks, which I also think look good and will be good for building as well. Next up, we have the frog. I think this is a very fun mob that's going to add lots of ambience to the game. They also said that there will be different frog types depending on where the frogs are. So there is the swamp frog, snowy frog, and tropical frog. And Agnes actually said that each frog type will have a unique use for the player. And they don't quite know what that is yet because they're still working on the frogs, but perhaps I can make an animated concept for that too. And they're also adding tadpoles to the game. And the tadpoles will be good for adding ambience, more wildlife, things like that. And on to the last thing for the swamp, which is the fireflies. I think the fireflies look very cool. They definitely add lots of ambience again to the swamp. And I think it's going to be very cool to see during the day and definitely at night. And I was thinking for the fireflies because they add so much ambience to the game that I'm thinking that it could actually be really nice to find the fireflies in places other than just the swamps. And I'm thinking that the wild update is showing lots of potential. It's going to be very exciting to see where they go with all this. The fact that they chose the swamp to be added, which was from a past biome vote, seems very promising to me. And that tells me that things that had the possibility of being added to the game in the past could certainly be added in the future. And I'm thinking that the potential for the wild update is looking really good and it could go a lot of different directions. And with all the different ambient things that they're adding to the game, I'm thinking that there could be ways to add even more ambience and life to the game as well. And that could be things that you hear in the game. For example, I think hearing birds in the trees, or wind, or light rain, or wind in the trees, howling in the distance from wolves, things like crickets, different types of sounds in the caves, and all the different ambience and wildlife type things that they could add to the wild update, I think has a lot of potential once again. And I think it's going to be very exciting to see where all these features go. So those were a couple of my thoughts and just a couple ideas for the wild update. So this has been another episode of Radio Artistry. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you have a good one.